Hey Texans, it's that time of the week to get ready to go fishing. So get your bass baits, crappie jigs, and whatever it takes for your favorite saltwater species. Load it up because we've got you covered here on the one and only Texas Insider Fishing Report.
Welcome to the Texas Insider Fishing Report. Presented by Yamaha.
Hello everyone and welcome back for another week of fishing on the Texas Insider Fishing Report. We're your hosts Brie Gabrielle and Captain Rick Murphy with the latest and greatest inshore and offshore reports from only the greatest captains around the state. Rick, how did we get so lucky with such awesome captains?
I don't know, but you know what? They really are very, very seasoned, and I'm really impressed with how well they do for us every single week. They bring the stuff.
They do bring the stuff. And someone else who also brings the stuff is Dave Ferrell at the CCA workbench. Dave, what's
I ain't got no stuff.
You got stuff. I
No,
know you
I
got stuff behind that workbench of yours.
It's hiding.
It's hiding.
I'm
What are we talking
hiding
about today,
Keeping it a
Dave?
secret?
We're going to talk about getting on the spot. Rigging and techniques.
The spot's a good place to be.
Getting on the spot.
It is.
Oh,
all right. Captain Caleb Harp in the Upper Coast region is starting us off, and his inshore and offshore report is going to blow your mind. Listen up.
Let's blow your mind then.
You'll blow it.
Let's kick it off. You know, the redfish have started cooperating pretty good in back lakes and marsh ponds all around the Galveston Bay complex. The marsh around Goat Island and East Bay and all the marsh ponds off the intercoastal have been good too. The marsh in West Bay from Jones, Greens, and Karankawa lakes have been good as well. And those areas normally are always going to hold redfish all summer and throughout the fall. Once those shrimp start dumping in the fall, you won't find many places better to catch your heads. You just got to hit the tide right. These areas are good on a higher tide. That way that you can get into the marsh ponds, and the higher water level will actually push those fish right up against the shoreline. Most of the time, visual fishing is key. Looking for fish with their backs out of the water or tailing is a dead giveaway, but most of the time they'll throw up a mud bowl or push away. If there are no visual signs, just blind casting and covering a lot of water will be the ticket. And when sight casting, a mirror lure provoker or any kind of rat tail soft plastic rigged weedless is hard to beat, but sometimes they want a paddle tail too. When blind casting, you can try out a small topwater or a wake bait like Strike Pro Hunchback. But, you know, when you're throwing topwaters, you don't want something super loud that'll spook those fish. So try to stay with a bait like a Top Dog Junior, a Super Spook Junior, or a baby skitterlock. The high-pitched she-dogs or super spooks aren't going to be the best bet for these fish. But spoons will also be productive over there, you know, at certain times. And then switching over to trout, you know, the trout fishing has been subpar in the bays lately. It's been real inconsistent. But luckily, the weather has been cooperative for anglers wanting to fish the surf. Light winds have kept the surf calm, and the clean water that we've had lately in the beachfront has made for some good fishing. The west end from Jamaica Beach on Tass Surfside has been producing the most consistent stringers, but even fishermen on the Baller side and around Rollover have been doing pretty good as well. Just cruising up and down the beach looking for visible bait, bird activity, or slicks are surefire ways to locate feeding fish in the surf. Just hop in and work the first gut thoroughly, you know, working out deeper and deeper until you find them. Topwaters have been good early, then switching over to mirror lure 51 MRs or soft plastics rigged on an 1/8-ounce jig head are producing bites. And there's a picture there from Emily Gilstrap with a nice trout while waiting in the surf this last weekend.
Nice.
And then going offshore, you know, we've been preaching that, you know, whenever the weather cooperates and things start to calm down, that the offshore fishing is going to explode. And this week proved that. The fishing turned on for everyone, and our guys at Salty Dolphin Charters said that this week has been great. The ling bite has been extraordinary lately, and Carl says that they've been seeing more ling than normal, and they've actually been seeing these ling from the beachfront all the way out to the 80-mile range. This Saturday's charter spotted about a dozen ling in various spots all over the place. They hooked 7 nice ling and boated 4 in the 40-pound range. The ling sightings have been consistent around snapper and kingfish spots, so just keep your eyes open and have a pitch bait ready. And like normal, whenever you're fishing for ling, bucktail or curly-tail jigs are going to be good. But also have a rod ready rigged with a 5/0 circle hook. That way, if you got some live shad on the boat, you'll be ready to go because those ling love live shad. And this bite should stay consistent for us throughout the summer until around September. So go get after them. And there's a picture there from Saturday's charter with Salty Dolphin, and you can see those 4 nice ling in a box full of other variety. And then, going over to, Dorado. Some years the Dorado are hard to come by this year. But, this year has been good whenever the weather gets right. And that weather needs to be calm to fish for Dorados. So, that you can see the weed lines and debris. Just a lot of visual fishing out there. But a lot of good boxes of Dorado have been coming in from areas closer to the beach than normal. Just keep your eyes peeled for debris and weed lines when you're running offshore. And don't hesitate to stop and check these places out because they've consistently held fish this season. If we don't flood out anytime soon and the salinity stays the same, that blue water keeps creeping into the beach, we'll be in store for a great summer and a lot of good fishing, will keep going on. And then to close it up, there's a picture there, the dock shot from Salty Dolphin Charters of a nice haul of Dorado.
All right, thank you so much, Caleb. We're going to go ahead and take a look at the CCA Upper Coast hotspots. Inshore, marsh ponds and back lakes in Galveston Bay Complex have started cooperating. Sight casting with soft plastics, top waters, and spoons have been good, just depending on how spooky the fish are. And then offshore, keep your eyes open for ling whenever you're offshore fishing for anything. The ling are spread out all over the place from the beachfront to 80 miles out. That's a lot of lings.
That is a lot of lings. And I think we got the offshore and inshore outfits coordinated today. You're the
How
offshore,
did we do
I'm
that?
the inshore.
Yeah,
Got Harvey, here we go. Matt Reed in the Yeti Lower Fresh region covers it all. And this weekend he's covering Fayette County, Lake Travis, Bastrop, Inks Lake, and Buchanan. So if you want the goods, keep those ears open. Hey, Matt.
Hey, Matt.
Hey, how are y'all today?
We're doing good. Why don't you go? Let's hear it, baby.
Good?
Yeah, man, let's do it.
Here, let's do it. Let's talk about a little bass in that lower region. I'm going to start out with the Fayette County Lake. It's fishing outstanding right now. The majority of the fish have moved out to the offshore haunts, the main lake points and drop-offs. They're in 17 to 24 feet of water. Carolina rigs with flukes or trick worms have been doing the main damage out there at that depth. You can also reach those fish with a deep diving crankbait like a Zuma Z-Boss 25 or some heavy spinner baits. That gets down to those fish in that depth range. And, back in the past, we couldn't reach those 24-foot deep fish with a crankbait, but you can do that now. We're going to roll on over toward the Austin area to Lake Travis. Lake Travis is still producing a lot of schoolies, fish schooling on the surface, busting shad, and so forth. The numbers are down a little bit, but what's happened with the numbers going down, the size went up, which I don't mind at all. If you can catch several fish in the 3 to 5 pound range out of those schools, and Brian Cotter and them have been occasionally catching a 6 or 8 pounder. Throwing a walking style bait at them like a spook or a Lucky Craft Sammy has been the best way to catch big ones out of those schools. If you want to throw soft plastics, start with a crawl worm or a creature bait, real tight to the shore where you've got any type of trees or any type of cover. Those fish have been super tight to that cover when the sun comes up. But Travis has been fishing good for over a year now, and that's great for that fishery. Moving to Lake Bastrop, still a lot of fish in the 2 to 3 pound range showing up. They're schooling all over the main lake. That's a fun way to catch them, but it can also drive you crazy because when you're here, they're over there and so forth. So look for that surface activity, and you can catch a lot of those fish. If you want to target the bigger ones, go deeper. The deeper fish on a football jig and Carolina rig are averaging bigger. The other way you can catch the bigger fish now is in the eelgrass. It's very thick. You can catch them on a frog or a wake bait. Swim baits will catch a few of them also. But Bastrop's a neat little old power plant lake that's giving up a lot of fish. Inks Lake's been producing pretty well lately. Throw a frog or a square bill over the laydowns or any type of wood cover in the water. Very clear fishery, and those fish are hanging around that cover where they have somewhere to hide. Lake Buchanan is another lake in that chain that is producing really well. There's a lot of fish in the 2 to 7 pound range being caught right now, flipping trees in 3 to 10 foot of water with Cincos and crawl worms. That bite's best up in the day when the sun's shining. That's pretty much what I've got for my region for bass.
All right, tell me about the photo, Bub.
That's Greg Boyk with Angle Guide Service. He helps me out with that region. That's a big old Fayette County bass that he caught there the other day.
You got that right. All right, let's talk about some white bass and hybrids and stripers then.
All right, I put all those kind of in one group because they're all mixed together right now. At Lake Buchanan, the whites and hybrids and stripers are schooled up over the main lake humps of 20 to 30 feet of water. Look for the birds, and that'll help you find those fish. You're catching them best on small swim baits and deep crankbaits in shad colors. It's always fun when they're mixed up because you never know if you're going to end up with a 10-inch white bass or a 15-pound striper. So it can be a lot of fun. The white bass on Lake Somerville are just going crazy. They're on nearly every main lake point. You can catch them throwing a slab spoon and white or chartreuse. And if you want to troll up and down the dam, you can troll a jet diver with a pet spoon behind it, and you can load the boat on them over there right now. Picture there is Brian Cotter with a big old hybrid. Came out of Lake Buchanan the other day.
Well, thank you for you got crappies, right?
I got a few crappie. Lake Somerville is kicking out the crappie right now. They're in 10 to 15 foot of water around the brush piles and also around the Big Creek Marina early in the morning. Minnows are working for live bait, and little plastic jigs, 1/8 ounce or so, are your best bet to catch you a limit of crappie.
All right, thank you so much, Matt. We're going to go ahead and take a look at the hot spots from the Yeti Lower Fresh region. We appreciate you very much. Fayette County Lake is producing some great bass fishing right now. Fish the main lake humps in 17 to 24 feet with Carolina rigs, soft plastics, or deep crankbaits.
All right, Rick, we're looking into your Middle Fresh region next here on the Texas Insider Fishing Report. But first, we're moseying over to the CCA workbench to see what rigs and techniques Dave's got for us. Dave?
We're going to talk about how to put the anchor on the bottom and how to get it up off the bottom.
We're going to get anchored.
What anchor to use.
I love it. I love it. We'll be right back.
The Texas Insider Fishing Report is brought to you by Yamaha. Reliability starts here. The American Fishing Tackle Company. Any fish, any water, since 1958. Guy Harvey, marine wildlife artist and conservationist. And CCA Texas, a leader in marine conservation.
Yamaha's 4.2-liter V6 offshore 4-strokes. For those that like their V6 lighter, faster, and stronger. Setting new standards for power, efficiency, speed, and lightweight. Built for the rigors of offshore boating. Packed with Yamaha's legendary reliability. And now Yamaha's 4.2-liter V6 4-strokes offer a choice between digital or mechanical controls to match your rigging preference. Yamaha. Reliability starts here.
Remember the glory days of gasoline? It's just not made the same anymore.
Kick your gas into gear with StarTron. Pump up the performance in all of your engines. Cure the problems of ethanol with the power of enzymes. And maximize your mileage every time you drive. Kickstart your engines with StarTron.
Outside is a bully. There are bears, screaming fleet-footed waters, arrogant mountains, Goliaths, 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 and 100 other excuses to stay inside. But there are ways to deal with bullies.
CCA is the largest marine conservation group of its kind. With 70,000 members in Texas, CCA's mission is dedicated to conserve, promote, and enhance the present and future availability of our coastal resources for the benefit and enjoyment of the general public. So if you care about the health of our Texas coastal resources, join CCA today by going to their website, ccatexas.org, and help them make a difference. Use the promo code REDFISH to receive your free hat with your membership. CCA, the leader in marine conservation.
So we're here at the CCA workbench, and as you can see, we have Dave and I have a guest, and Dave.
And there he is.
This is Mike Avanon, and he's really our golf expert. I've done some Sportsman's Adventure episodes with him, and Mike, the one thing that I've grown to appreciate is the way you like to anchor, and the different types of anchors that you use, obviously. But the key is that one time we were filming a Sportsman's Adventure episode, and we were 50 feet off. You made a little move. Right. Who would have thought?
Yeah.
And then next thing I know, triple up.
Being on the spot is more important than anything else in all of the bottom fishing. More important than what bait you're using, line, and all that stuff.
Absolutely.
You've got to be where they are,
Yes.
and if you're not in this right spot, you're
And it's like, say you've got a light tide or
trouble.
there's a light bite. The fish don't want to feed that hard.
Right.
You know, the difference can be being in a proper position on that spot. And it's not just anchoring up on a wreck or a reef or groupers and snappers, you know, as well as I do.
Yeah.
It's everything.
Yeah. So
what-
Dave has created some illustrations, or had some illustrations created for us. So why don't we take a look at the first one? Dave, why don't we tell everybody what's going on?
Well, this is, you know, the dark area is your bottom, your good hard bottom, or your wreck or reef, and then you have your boat obviously anchored up, and you have the wind and the tide direction. And this is one of the hardest ones, where you have the tide and the wind are across each other.
Correct.
So how would you go about trying to get in this hole?
The wind, what you want to do is you want to make sure that you use the tide to your advantage to get the bait and the scent of those fish. In other words, you're going to anchor, say this is an incoming tide, you want to anchor a little bit offshore of the spot, allowing your scent and your chum and whatever you're trying to get to those fish to the fish. That way they don't have to go looking for what you're offering. They find it right there underneath the boat.
So the second illustration, let's take a look at the difference.
That's wind against tide.
Exactly.
And one of the hardest things too.
Yeah, but this can actually, you can resolve this pretty simple when you're offshore. All you have to do is just put out a little more anchor rope to go past the spot a little bit, and it's the same thing. You're allowing all that chum and bait fish and stuff to get to those fish.
Right.
So it's literally as simple as anchoring up on your spot and giving it just a little more rope, maybe another 50 or 80 feet to compensate for the tide running against the wind.
All right, and then our third illustration.
Now,
the easiest one,
this
hopefully.
is, well, you hope. And for beginners, a little bit of advice would be, say normally you pull up to your spot, you go 200 feet past your spot like I do, and then put your anchor out to anchor on it. Now what you want to do is you want to go maybe 300 feet, and you can drop back a little extra rope if you need to get closer to your spot.
Because the wind and the tide are working together
correct.
and blowing you up past your spot if you're not careful.
Absolutely, that's correct. It's a lot easier to let out a little scope than it is to
pick the whole thing up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So Mike, what's a good rule of thumb? If you're fishing in 100 feet of water, how much anchor rope, or how far should you try to set the anchor from it?
Two things. Anchor rope, as far as the amount of anchor rope, it's usually 3 times the depth. So if you're fishing in 100 feet of water, it would be 300 feet of anchor rope. And I use the same formula when I'm trying to anchor on a spot. Usually when I put that anchor over, I like to be at least 2 times the depth of the water, but if you're a little unsure, like I said, you can always go 3, and that gives you a little leeway getting closer to that spot. The key, remember, is get as close as you can. If it's 45, 50 feet, that's about perfect.
All right, so let's talk about the anchors, the different type of anchors. This is the particular anchor that you use, the plow.
Right, the plow. And I love this anchor. This will stick every single time as long as you have the proper amount of chain. You know, a lot of times when you buy those little 6-foot pieces of chain at the store,
right,
it's not enough.
Right.
I put 20 feet of chain on my anchor, and it basically what it does is, is when you have that little 6-foot piece of chain, this thing will actually, the boat will pull on this shaft right here, and it'll lift the anchor up off the bottom.
Right.
When you have the 20 feet of chain, it actually pushes down on this, and it lets that dig into the sand or the rock or whatever you're trying to get into.
Right.
One thing to remember when you rig this anchor up is not to put the chain here on the front of the anchor. You want to put it on the back. And then what we do is we take the chain, lay it across the shaft, use a couple nice tie wraps, heaviest tie wraps you can get.
Right.
That way, if it does hang up at the rock or the bottom or the wreck, this breaks free, this folds back.
And it pulls it from the
from
front
the
of the anchor.
Exactly.
To dislodge it. All right, so some of the other anchors that people use, this is the Danforth.
This is probably the most commonly used.
This is the one you see at everywhere.
And you know what? It's an easy, inexpensive way to learn how to anchor. In other words, with this anchor, you're not getting any trouble. This one you might hang up in the bottom, this one you're not.
Well, if you do, it'll come off.
Yeah,
a lot easier.
That's right, yeah. You'll bend the flukes and then you got to figure out how to straighten them back out.
All right, so then we also have, this would be a grapple. A lot of the guys, when they're fishing on wrecks, they use this. They know that it's going to hang up on the wreck, but the same principle applies here. We're going to hook it up here and then a tie wrap right here. The cool part about this is even if you're in a little technical poling skiff, this anchor will fold up and go away. You can put it away someplace real easy.
Exactly, and you can get like a little carry bag or maybe even a soft-sided Yeti, and you could put this thing with a piece of chain and maybe 50 feet of rope and you're all set to
All
go
right,
fishing.
now we got 300 feet of rope out. How are we going to get that up from the bottom?
This is probably the greatest thing since sliced bread.
All right.
So what you do with this is what we call a haul ball. Say you don't have a windlass on your boat and you want to pull this 22-pound anchor up off the bottom with 20 feet of chain.
Right.
It's a lot of work.
Right.
So you take this, basically you open this ring up, you put it over the top of your rope like that. It slides right in through here. We'll just kind of do it like that just to show you.
Right.
Just like that, okay?
Throw the ball over.
Throw the ball over after you snap it in, like so.
Right.
Just like that. And what it does is as you drive away from the anchor, this slides down the rope, slides down, catches the anchor, and holds the anchor on the surface with the buoy.
It'll lift
So
it
then
up.
you just
It'll lift
turn
it up.
around and pull in your rope.
Take
Pull
up
it
the
straight
slack.
in.
Man, there's no slack going on over here.
Yeah, you got this.
That's good stuff. I'm so glad you suggested
Yeah.
that we bring Mike in, Dave. Pretty work. All right, speaking of pretty work.
Oh, thanks,
Come
Rick.
on,
That
what
was
do you
a lot
say,
of
Pathfinder?
Good advice over there. Hey, StarTron Middle Fresh Region, if Lake Livingston and Toledo Bend sound familiar, you're going to want to listen to your guide, Matt Locher, if the weekend is taking you fishing. Go for it, Matt.
Hey, Brie. I'm going to start off this week talking about Lake Livingston. I spoke with Simon Cosper down there this week with Get the Net Guide Service, and he told me that the white bass are really hot down there right now. They're catching limits daily, usually by early morning, on main lake humps and road beds, and about 15 to 20 foot of water. Mostly on the south end of the lake has been holding these big schools of fish, so you'll want to focus on that end and just use your electronics to find these fish. They're deep and they're pretty much down the bottom during the daytime, so go over them with your electronics, stay looking around, and when you find them, the best way to catch them is a 1 ounce RSR slab spoon, and yellow and chrome has been the best for catching them, he's telling me. And then in the afternoons, there is a little bit of schooling activity going on the main lake flats next to deep water. And then when the fish come up busting the surface like that, you just have to get to them quick and get a bait in there, whether it's a crankbait or a topwater plug, whatever you got handy, just get a bait in there to them quick and try to stay as far away from them as you can and cast to them. And you should be able to catch them good. But that early morning bite is really the deal, he says. So get out there and catch a bunch of those things. They're great to catch and eat. And then up at Toledo Bend, I'm going to talk about some black bass fishing. The fish are a little fickle right now, but we are catching some big ones. There's a little bit of topwater schooling action happening early in the mornings, especially on the calm days. Not so much if the wind is blowing, but if it's calm, especially if it's cloudy, those fish have been chasing shad toward the top quite a bit. So you can just get a topwater plug on them early in the morning if you get around them, and that's a good way to catch some fast action early. And then once the sun gets up, usually around 9 or 10 in the morning, I've been dragging a big worm for these fish. Look for them in about 10 to 20 foot of water down on the bottom. Use your electronics to find them on your sonar. They're going to be on little ledges and drops, kind of a slow taper and drop is what they're liking right now because they're moving up and down chasing those shad. And just drag that worm through them really slow. They're not wanting to bite, but the big fish are biting when you get around them. If you drag that worm through there slow enough, you can catch them. I like just a big, long, skinny trick worm in either red bug or like a watermelon red color. Like I said, just find them on your graph, throw it out there past the school, and drag it through them real slow, and those big fish will bite pretty good for you. I've got a photo there of a customer from this week, Mr. Steve Guthrie, with a pretty good fish he caught practicing out there for a tournament this week, and they ended up cashing a check in that same event, doing that deal I was just talking about. So it's working out good.
Nice.
Tell me about some panfish, bub.
All right, so lastly, I'm going to touch on some of the panfish on Toledo Bend as well. The bluegill and the crappie are hanging out real good in deep timber, pretty far out there. They're getting out in 20, 30 foot of water, and they're just hanging out on the tops of these deeper trees. The bluegill have really ganged up on the top, and then the crappie sit just below them. So you're going to want to use like some live crickets under a cork to fish the brim, or the bluegill rather. And, you know, they're numerous out there. So when you get a school of those things fired up, you can really catch a ton of them. It's great for the kids. And then the crappie are sitting just right below the bluegill. So when you start catching those bluegill, go just a little deeper with the minnows or the jigs, and you can catch those crappie. It's been getting a little bit better lately. We went through kind of a lull period there last couple of weeks, but the minnow bite has been picking up. We're catching a little more, some better numbers this past week. So the fishing's improved a little. now's a great time to take the family out there and get in on some of that action. We've had some kids out there this last week. We had a group. I've got a photo there for you. Mr. Alan Estee and his granddaughter Isabella with a nice crappie they caught on a trip this week. So get those kids out there and have some fun this week.
So Matt, I got a question for you, bub. My question is, a live cricket. How do you put a hook in him? How do you fish him?
Good question.
Oh, that's a good question. So the live cricket, you're going to want to take a small panfish hook, like about a number 4 size, the ones that have the longer shank on them, and you'll just basically come in right behind his head and just thread it right through his body and come out the back side. And believe it or not, that'll keep him alive for a little bit, and those bluegill just can't stand it. You put it down there around them, they're going to gobble it up.
I like it. I think that's really cool. Now, do you fish him on the surface, or do you use him, get him down below? I mean, how does that work? He's wiggling his little legs on the surface, I hope?
Well, no, actually, you're going to want to get them down a little bit. You can get these bluegill to come up to the surface. They're curious little creatures. So if you get some surface if you leave a bug on the surface like that, they will come check it out. But most of these fish are going to be down there about 5 to 10 feet over this deep timber right now. They're really ganging up in big schools down there just on the tops of those trees. So you can either fish it under a cork, or you can even drop it down tight line to that depth with a split shot.
All right, man. I know I'm going to see you pretty soon, so we'll take a look at the hot spots from the Middle Fresh region. Our guide Matt says fish the south end of Lake Livingston for white bass with spoons in 15 to 20 feet of water, and then drag worms on Toledo Bend in 10 to 20 feet of water for big bass, and fish minnows in the deep timber for crappie and bluegills.
That's a good question, Ray.
Well, thanks.
Yeah, I wouldn't know how to do that with a cricket.
Yeah,
Wouldn't think about it until I got there, and I'd be like, oh.
Now we know how to drown the cricket.
Now we know. All right, let's chat about CCA Texas and CCA's National Habitat Program Building Conservation Trust. They have provided $60,000 to the Baffin Bay Unique Serpulid Reef Habitat Study. Serpulid reefs, which appear to be degrading in size and distribution, are very rare and are only found in Texas around the Baffin Bay system. The Texas A&M University Corpus Christi Hart Research Institute for Gulf of Mexico Studies will be conducting a study that will help create an understanding of the ecological role of serpulid reef communities, particularly as a prey resource. It will improve fishery resource management and our ability to conserve these rare, naturally occurring hard substrate habitats. CCA is always doing amazing things for our waters.
Yeah, man, and I can tell that was a biologist that wrote all those bullet points.
It was, but I sounded like a biologist,
you
didn't I?
did good, man.
So
I'll tell you, if I had to read that, we'd be here for a month or
You would be not good. The Middle Coast and Upper Fresh region captains are up next on the Texas Insider Fishing Report, so stay hooked. And remember, for all things fishing, visit our website, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and view and tag us on Instagram. We'll be right back.
The Texas Insider Fishing Report is brought to you by Contender Boats, always in the game. Bass Assassin and Saltwater Assassin, the best lures, period. CCA Star, fishing fun for giant prizes and scholarships. And Costa Sunglasses, see what's out there.
Master your most challenging offshore experience with confidence and ease with Yamaha Helmmaster. Precise, intuitive control on the open seas. Unrivaled ease for maneuvering and docking in port. And now SetPoint adds 3 new dimensions to boat control. Maintain boat position with fish point, or a position and heading with stay point, or a heading while you drift with drift point. Yamaha Helmmaster, now with SetPoint. Complete digital control for today's larger offshore boats.
As close as you're gonna get to a sure thing for catching billfish is Guatemala.
They're here, man. This has been a 20-year run, buddy. These things haven't left. There's no cycle.
When it comes to sail fishing, this is the real deal.
The amount of sailfish here is ridiculous.
Our Middle Coast region captain has some offshore and inshore July secrets to share with you. So get ready for your Captain Bink Grimes. Tell them what they need to know, Bink.
I tell you what, our trout fishing has been really, really good. July affords some of the lowest tides of the year, so we've been kind of switching our fishing patterns to deep water and a moving tide. That's not really earth-shattering this time of year, but it's important when the tides are 2 feet below normal and the water temperature is about 90 degrees. You got to find some deep water close by. And Sea Drift guide Harold Garachik of Bay Flats Lodge said his boat fishermen had a tougher time finding water with the low tides, but live bait's been best around the intercoastal waterway and marsh lakes. They're targeting mud pockets and grassy edges. And then he's wading and catching better trout in the 18 to 23 inch range while working waist deep water over undulating sand and grass shorelines. Live croakers have garnered the most strikes, but also soft flashes, chicken on a chain, the plum, chartreuse, bass assassins, and down south lures have been the best. And closer to Port O'Connor, guide Lisbeth has been wading the grass beds of topwaters and catching lots of 3 to 4 pound trout on super spooks and Miller sheep pups. He likes to work close to Pascavallo this time of year. It gets the very best tidal movement. Those surf trout, they move in and out of that path with the tides, and sometimes you even run into a tarpon. The guts along the Powderhorn shoreline and the flats next to the old Coast Guard station are great July spots as well. East Matagorda Bay really turned on. We've got some light winds this week, and we've really been getting after them. Guy Tommy Alexander caught release trout to 7 pounds while drifting East Bay. Guide Michael Quebec and Michael Ross, Run and Gun Adventures. All today, I released 8 pounds. We're all releasing big fish out there, and it's been really, really good. The switch to southeast winds, it's lowered the barometer. We've got a chance of rain every day, and when you got a low barometer or a chance of rain, it makes those fish eat. And it's just been a great pattern in about 5 foot of water while drifting. The reefs in the middle of the bay have been wadeable as well. We've seen not too many calm days, but this week it's been good to wade Droll's Lump, Half Moon Reef, Long Reef, and 3 Beacon Reef. There are plenty of fish waiting right there on the drop-off, throwing super spooks, skitter walks, bass assassins, down south lures, and those mirror lure softines. And the guys throwing croaker, they caught and released trout to 8 pounds while wading the north shoreline around Chink Bend of the pipeline. And a lot of them are, most of them are releasing those big fish, and we appreciate that. And in Freeport, trout are best around the rocks and channel on live shrimp. They've been there's been some flounder in the same locales and a lot of mangrove snapper as well. And then those anglers toss the soft flashes in the harbor. They're finding those fish along the edges. And there's a nice trout picture right there caught on a morning glory bass assassin sea shad while working the drop-offs next to Intercoastal. That fish was caught with me last week. We'll go to inshore black drum and redfish. Guy Floyd Cerruti of Matagorda. He's been tearing up black drum with low tides by concentrating on the shell. He's been taking limits in West Matagorda Bay by working the morning incoming tide. Those redfish guys, they had to move around a lot to find good reds. It's been the one here, one there game. However, the winds have switched to the southeast. We had a little bit more water pumped in our bay this past 3 or 4 days. It's making fishing off the points and on the south shoreline of West Matagorda Bay a lot better. Live shrimp and mullets work best. Waders have found trout, redfish scattered later in the day, about the same spots where they're catching those trout. Then around Freeport, the jetty's been good for reds. Those Carolina rigging finger mullet and pogies worked on the moving tide. Those surf anglers are finding redfish in the first gut early on the morning on the incoming tide. Same places they're catching limits of trout. If they're throwing a big hunk of mullet in there, they're catching big redfish. And then Rockport, Port Aransas anglers, they work the back lakes with mullets for reds. Some control the intercoastal with gulps and DOA shrimp. Tides are still well below normal, but they have come up a bit. That's just a normal July low tide deal. We'll go offshore out of Freeport. Man, our kingfish have been good on sardines within side of the beach. Some jetty anglers, they've been surprised they're catching small king. Out of Matagorda, it's the same story. Out of Port Aransas and Port O'Connor, it's the same story. There are just a lot of kingfish everywhere. And they're trolling the rigs, the reefs, and they're trolling crankbait. And we had, like I said, we had a nice weekend with the calm seas. And Guide Michael Quebec went out there and caught limits of red snapper. kingfish, ling, and his limited trout. It was an awesome box. And then Port Aransas party boats, they're taking plenty of kings on the wharf cat and scat cat. Those amberjack are plentiful well, but they're releasing them right now. And there's a lot of billfish on the breaks and the hilltops in good numbers. And there's been some really, really nice snapper in the 20-plus pound range that's making a lot of anglers happy. And we're so glad that our conditions have been so much better, because we're really, really having a good time all along the Middle Coast.
All right, we're glad for you too, Bink. All right, we're going to go ahead and take a look at the Middle Coast region hotspots. Bink says that inshore trout are good while wading the sand and grass near sea drift on live croakers. East of Matagorda Bay is good for trout while working reefs on the north shoreline on topwaters and bass assassins. And then black drum are good in Matagorda over the reefs in West Bay on live shrimps, Bree.
All right, the Upper Fresh region has got quite the weekend lineup with Lake Tawakoni and Fork producing some pretty great hookups. So Johnny, if you're ready, we're ready for you.
Hello, Rick and Sarah. How y'all doing?
Good, we're doing good. How you, Johnny?
Great, man. I got a good report from Captain Matt Cartwright over there on Tawakoni. They got some excellent fishing this summer, and these stripers are turned on. He's reporting limits almost daily by 7 o'clock. So if you get out early, that's the time to catch them. When I go over there, I like to start out the day right at daybreak, head to the south end of the lake, right along the dam, do a quick ride around in the boat looking for breaking fish. Pretty easy to find them when they're busting the big shad, and best thing to do is watch which direction they're feeding in then, and not run into the school with your big motor. I see way too many people doing that, and that'll shut them down quicker than anything. But approach the school with your trolling motor. Pick up a big topwater bait like a pencil popper or Czar spook, either in white or chrome, and you can start catching fish on the topwaters. Just be real careful when you take off those 10, 12-pound stripers, because they will put a hook in your hand if you don't handle them carefully. Another great lure to use in surfacing stripers I like to throw is a sassy shad on about a 1-ounce head. A lot of times you can make a long cast with that and crank it through the school, and they'll load up and you can catch them quick. One hook to get off is a lot quicker way to catch a fish. When they go down, you can reel that sassy shad slowly through the school and catch them that way too. Once that schooling activity stops, the stripers usually stay in a pretty good sized school, but they move out deeper and start feeding on the shad balls. You find those by looking at your electronics on the side view. Find the shad balls, and when you see that spaghetti with all those stripers underneath it, it's game on. Midday action's best on heavy slabs, hopped off the bottom, reeled quickly through the school. They hit it on the way up. Or you can pull that sassy shad real slow along the bottom, catch them that way too. If you got a shad tank, know how to catch bait, get up early, go do that. You can catch them on live shads. It's a surefire way to catch not only stripers, but sand bass and a bunch of hybrids as well. On Tawakoni, be careful and be courteous to other anglers. They do have a lot of them that gang up when the rods start bending. Don't run your boat in too close. And man, I see people troll right by you. Don't do that. Don't run the motor down. Everybody be catching fish. Matt, let me borrow this picture. It's a good shot of a couple of his young anglers with a couple of nice stripes, and they got a smile on their face and they're having fun.
Well, they sure do. All right, what else you got for us this week, Bub?
Hey, real quick, over at Lake Fork, I was off last week up in Arkansas fishing, but one of my good guide buddies here, a young guy named Eric Wright, gave us a good report here for July. He works hard to put his customers in some action, and boy, he's been on pretty good lately. Eric says this time of year he always keeps a weightless fluke, a white disco violet, tied on. He just no weight at all. Don't be caught without that bait. The fish are scooting a little bit, and they're suspended, and he's starting to catch them with that fluke. Fish are scooting anywhere from 15 to 24 foot in the morning for about the first 1 to 2 hours of fishing. Then Eric likes to start out fishing the drop shot. He is an expert with that drop shot, man. He rigs this up with a 1-aught rigging hook and a 5/16 ounce weight. He's using a 14-inch leader with a finesse tomato red zoom worm. A lot of other colors work, but that tomato red, that's what Eric's catching on almost every day. Another bait he's using is a 6XD crankbait, Tennessee shad or chartreuse back, blue back, and of course the Carolina rig. sets a C rig up with a 1 ounce weight and a 5-foot leader. So all these particulars is really what makes the difference is how you rig these things. Using a 3/0 rigging hooks, the best bait for that fluke, and a Mardi Gras color. Eric reports in, he targets anywhere from 20 to 24 foot up mid-morning, a little bit later in the day. Won't head up shallow till late in the evening. Then he'll move right back up in about 15 foot of water less and continue fishing the same baits. Afternoon temperatures this next month will be extremely high for around here. So be sure you got a lot of extra sunscreen on, drink plenty of water. We like to split up some days, do a fish up till late morning, take a good break, and then go out and mid-afternoon fish till later, and you get the best action that way. Bass starting to move in their annual normal deeper water. I was out there today, caught an 8-pounder and a 7-pounder pretty easy, starting to bunch up, and saw some schooling right under a bridge in about 38 foot. So it's starting that time of year to be a lot of fish in different water columns. Here's a good picture Eric sent me, and just look at this young man here. You don't see many kids have that big smile on their face, but he got him a nice Lake Fork bass on the drop shot.
Man, I don't know who's got a bigger smile, that bass or him, man. I'm so happy to see that picture. Thank you for sending that in, Johnny. We're going to go ahead and take a look at the hot spots from the Upper Fresh region. Johnny says Lake, what? Tawakoni. Striper fishing has been excellent. Early morning surface activity on pencil poppers, live bait, catching stripers, hybrids, and whites. And then Lake Fork, big black bass and crappies continue to be good. The bass on drop shots and the crappies best on minos.
What would you do without me?
I don't know.
You'd be mispronouncing a lot of stuff.
I might not be sitting here if I didn't have you to worry about.
Aw. Can I quote you? We've got your Lower Coast Region reporting captain next, and we're taking a gander at what new products Dave's got for us at CCA Workbench. Dave.
A gander.
A gander.
A gander. A little plug or a giant plug? Which would you rather pull? I'm going to pull the big one.
The big one.
Just because.
I'd just do the big one.
Big's better, baby.
Big's always, not always.
Oh.
All right, we'll be back.
The Texas Insider Fishing Report is brought to you by Rapala. Catch the latest at Rapala.com. Yeti, built for the wild. Building Conservation Trust, CCA's National Habitat Program. StarTron, cures and prevents ethanol fuel problems. And Casa Vieja Lodge, 5-star angling in beautiful Guatemala.
When you've got an incredible opportunity in front of you, you want a Yamaha VMAX SHO behind you. Just ask 2017 Toyota Bassmaster Angler of the Year, Brandon Polinick. He'll tell you, if you're an aspiring angler with big dreams and a VMAX SHO, there's no limit to what you could achieve. Light, fast, fuel-efficient V6 performance and Yamaha reliability that lets you focus on your game. Nothing pushes you like a Yamaha VMAX SHO.
That's all we need. We need next quarter so we can keep on to everything.
Yeah? Stop working right now! Look outside. Is this spreadsheet weather? No, it's not. This is fishing weather. So stop clicking, get out there, and catch a bass. Stop what you're doing and start fishing Rapala Ripstop.
Thanks for tuning in to the Texas Insider Fishing Report. Be sure to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter and Instagram to keep up with our captains, contests, and appearances. You never have to miss a show. You can find full episodes as well as special segments right on our homepage. Just head to TexasInsiderFishingReport.com for everything you need to know to stay hooked up.
Today's power pole tip of the week is about using dual poles. Now guys, I love the fact that with dual poles, I can create total boat control. Now when I approach a dock, or if I approach a point or an oyster bar, everything is in the angle of my cast in most fishing conditions. So what I try to do is understand exactly the presentation that I want to make with my lure and set the boat up by so doing that. So what ends up happening is we can approach a dock, we can approach that oyster bar, and I'm going to put the boat so that I can compensate for the wind as well as the current. And dual poles allow me to do that. Most of the time, if you have a single pole, you're always going to drift down current or even downwind, or the wind might blow you across the current. So you don't have the total control that you have with duals. So keep that in mind, that with duals, you're going to have the total boat control, and that's today's Power Pole Tip of the Week. We're here at the CCA workbench, Dave, and
Yes,
you know,
sir.
looking at the power poles, I just wonder what we did before power poles.
We got a lot of mud in our boat by pulling anchors over. That's what I did.
Or, you know, trying to stake out with a graphite push pole was just so painful.
I wonder how many times you tied off to that pole and then watched your rope come off of it and have to.
Early on, a lot of times.
Yep. All right, we're going to start out here. Our first product is the Akuma SC line of boat rods. It's called SC because they use a spiral carbon technology. And if you look real close, you look inside there, there's a little spiral of
really see it right here.
carbon fiber down there, a dual helix wrap with over 6,000 strands of carbon fiber inside that. So it's incredibly strong, really lightweight. It's got all Fuji guides on there, the special tangle-free K guides, and a Fuji reel seat, the EGFA foam, EVA foam handles on the front and back.
You know, this is one thing
Really
too
good
that I
deal.
like. Instead of this being metal,
Yeah.
it feels like it's some type of hard
Delrin.
plastic, like Delrin.
Yeah.
And this is a lot belly friendly, a lot more belly friendly.
Yeah, for sure. And I tell you what, having a gimbal also it means a lot if you got a decent fish on.
Yeah.
With a good belt and a good gimbal, you can do a lot of work.
But most spinning rods,
Yeah.
when you go to stick them in a rod holder, don't have a gimbal.
Correct.
So that's the reels flopping when it's rough.
I always try to get a gimbal on mine. And if I
Good
don't,
work, Akuma.
Yep, very
This
good
is the
stuff.
same series of rods that I've been using for the sail fishing and, you know, doing all my big tarpon fishing.
I
Dave.
got you.
Yeah.
Well, here we got some Starbright products. We got the Extreme Clean and the Extreme Protectant. Now that Extreme Cleaner, it can be used on almost any surface. It's a good cleaner and degreaser. Removes dirt, grime, greasy stains. Cleans vinyl, fiberglass, plastic, rubber, any painted surface. You know, you can clean just about anything with it. And the Protectant is perfect for, you know, all your cushions and stuff. It provides a great UV protection, interior and exterior. You know, you spray down the cushions in your salon and stuff, the sun shining through can damage all that soft goods. And the Extreme Protectant works really good on that too. Leather even, it keeps stuff from drying out. You know, you can't beat either one of those products. And it doesn't leave, when you put that protectant on it, it doesn't leave this nasty oily residue. It's static free, so nothing clings to it.
You know, between the bugs trailering and getting on your cushions,
Exactly.
you know, on your power poles early in the morning, I use this for the cleaning. And then for the sunscreen, getting the sunscreen off the seats, my leather seats in my Nissan.
Yeah.
Man, it just is such a perfect combination to keep everything looking fresh.
They work good.
Yeah, man.
All right, next we have the X-Wrap from Rapala. These are Magnum dive baits. This is the Magnum 40, and the 40 stands for 40 feet. You know, it's got a huge lip on it, and it'll get down. And not only will it get down deep, but it can go fast. You know, a lot of these plugs you got to worry about them rolling over and kicking out on you if you get too fast. These will probably eventually do it, but you probably got to go really darn fast to get one of these things to roll over. It's got UV additives to it. If you want to, you can get the ones with the UV additives, which I would do. And it's also got these awesome VMC hooks on there. It's really super strong.
The thing I like, Dave, is I control them between 8 and 10 knots. And a lot of lip plugs, you can't do that
Right. Well, this is the VMC. You're going to do this VMC. This is called a probe. And these are kind of like, these are the net, kind of like the Ned rigs I was talking about a while ago. These come in 16ths and 32nds ounce, and they're really good for panfish, but you'd be surprised the amount of bass you can catch on little tiny things like that. When the bass are, you know, up there eating little fry and tiny minnows, they will pile on those things, and all you got to do is drop them down into the school of minnows, and they will come through. And I've caught 5-6 pound bass on little tiny things just like that, and regularly. I mean, it's unreal. When I've started using this little tiny stuff, the bass I've been catching on
So Dave,
it.
when you're using this fine, thin wire hooks, And obviously braid, you know, we don't have
Well,
any
these are special. These are VMC. They got an extra wide gap actually. For these have a 5% wider gap than a 4/0 normally would for these size.
So do you need to back off on the drag to keep, you know?
Yeah, but I'm never using more than probably 5 pounds of drag anyway. So that hook will probably hold 5 pounds of drag without straightening out. That's what I always figure. If I can pull whatever drag I have and not straighten the hook out, that's what I set it.
Well, I don't think 5 pounds of drag would ever straighten the two of us out. But you know what, Brie, there's always hope.
Nope, I don't think so. No hope for you guys over there. The lower coast region is always going off, whether it's inshore or offshore. So Captain Kinney, tell us what will be on the end of our lines this weekend.
I tell you what, it is going off down here. We got great weather and great forecast for weather, so it's time to go now. I think all the way through, you know, September, October here. So Baffin Bay just turned on here with the influx of fresh water. We had about 12, 14 inches of rain here a couple weeks ago, so that fresh water is reaching into there. So that's going good, you know, for the trout and redfish. And offshore conditions are getting really good. You know, group of python snappers out there, and some good Dorado are showing up in that 200 to 400 feet range. Going over to Baffin Bay, like I was talking about, inshore here. Had the Baffin Bay North Land Cut, and it's been producing good trout and redfish there. The trout fishing is good in Baffin. These guys, it was slow for a little while. The salinity level was so high, but with that influx, it went down. And getting some really good reports out there. Some buddies of mine fishing up there. So when it's try some free-line croaker, that's working really well. Live shrimps are working really well if it's available there with a popping cork. On the soft plastics there, the purple and chartreuse sand deal is working really good. 1/8-ounce jig head, and work those drop-offs if you're using live bait and or the plastics. Work those drop-offs really good. Also, with the weather's getting a lot better here, so the clarity of the water's getting better. You know, the sun's out here. We're not overcast as much. You can see a lot better. So look for sand pockets in those grass lines on the drop-offs. Definitely work those sand pockets. You know, the edge of the grasses. That's where those fish are going to ambush that bait at. And then in the land cut, like I said, also is working really good up there. So you have those grass lines coming down. You know, you got a narrow edge right through there. So work those edges, drop offs, and a lot of those guts that are in there with that water that was coming off, guys. It's actually flowing off, going in, and work some of those guts and where they're stumping out into there. So got a good picture. Had the privilege to fish a good family down here this week. It was a lot of fun. I got a picture of Wyatt and his dad, Troy, project there with a good trout there.
Man, that is a nice trout.
That's a nice trout.
All right, what else you got for us inshore tonight, Bub?
Yeah, moving on to redfish here. Like I said, they're showing up with the better weather here. The jetties have been producing good. I called top people everywhere. Port Aransas jetties is going really good on the redfish. Mansfield jetties has turned on really good with here, South Padre. And also Baffin Bay's turned on with some redfish up there. They got some big bulls up in there in the 9 Mile Hole, so it's really starting to look better for that area. It's like I said, the jetties up there, if you're using some live croaker or finger mullet, that's working really well. Try free line, moving on that too. If the current's moving a little bit harder, use a Carolina rig, maybe bump it up to like a 1/2 ounce, 1 ounce egg weight on the Carolina rig. And if you're fishing that jetty area, go with a heavy leader. You can go 60, 80 pounds if you want to. I prefer like maybe a 60 amount of filament, so that just saves it from shaking too bad and getting cut off. And also, if you get Carolina rig, if you want to, free line one bait and throw one out in the bottom and use some cut mullet on the bottom, works really good. Also, if you're working that land cut or anything else like that for some redfish, look for those edges. On these lighter wind days we're having like that, so you can look for mullet flipping or anything else like that. You can see the redfish maybe possibly tailing or pushing those V's like that. So if you see that, either power pull down and get out there and check it out, but use a top water or gold spoon like that and sight casting works really good on that. And then moving over to the offshore here, like I said, weather conditions have been great. It's really affecting the fishing a lot better, especially offshore too. So snapper fishing's been remaining consistent, really good. Everything out there, grouper bites pretty good out there going on too, and some good Dorado, some better numbers than I've seen are actually showing up in that 200 to 400 foot range. So if you're heading out deeper, you want to do some ground fishing out there like that. The snapper are really great, of course, but something a little bit different I like doing too is the grouper out there deep. Use a heavier Williamson jig. Works out really well when you're fishing that deep water. Fish at least 200 feet. They'll fish 300-400 feet of water. So use that Williamson 7-ounce jig. It's a slow falling flutter jig right there. And tip it with a whole squid or belly strip of bonita, and you jig it off the bottom of the first 10 feet. So that'll work really good. And you can target yellow edge scamp out deep to Warsaw and some bigger baits. If we get too many snapper bites, go ahead and take the bait off and just go ahead and use it by itself. Got a picture here of a yellow edge grouper there and a scamp grouper out deep in about 300 foot of water. So moving over to some Dorado there. Weed lines are going really good. Lower coast, wind subsiding. It looks great. Look for water temp about 82 to 84 degrees. The upwelling are there. There's some wild and Dorado mixed in. Use some cedar plugs, rig the plastics and stuff like that's working really good. And look for some thermocline like that. Like I said, the water temp's really good on that stuff. We got a nice picture of Bull Dorado we just picked up here the last couple of days.
Wow.
So, Chad, I got to ask you a quick question. When it comes to this time of year, how long do you expect the weather to hang in here through the rest of the season?
I think it's going to hang in here until we get the first big cold front.
All right. Sounds like it'll be good through October. All right, we're going to go ahead and take a look at the hot spots from the lower coast region. Inshore, Baffin Bay has turned on with the influx of fresh water for trout and reds. And then offshore, the conditions are great for the grouper bite has been good, with Dorado showing up in 200 to 400 feet of water.
Well, guys, I hate to say it, but there you go. 6 regions, 6 guys, and we're through
That was pretty quick.
the entire state of Texas. And there you have it.
It's a big state, too.
It's a big state with some...
So, Bree.
Yes.
We've had baby now.
Yes, we've
when
had
we
baby.
going fishing, Bree, it's time.
As soon as possible.
Bree, you've been 8 or 9 months without fishing because we couldn't take a chance.
I can fish off a dock.
I know, but it's time to get back.
We're not talking about me fishing.
Daddy's taking care of the baby. We're going to go offshore.
All right, Daddy Joe.
Thanks for tuning in,
the
guys.
The host got a date
we
right
do.
here.
We do. We'll see you next week. Have a fun weekend fishing. Bye.